ever had a conversation with someone that when you walked away you felt completely drained? Maybe the looks they were giving you made you uncomfortable, or the responses felt dismissive or disrespectful, or maybe they used silence as a way to control your emotions. They twist your words, guilt trip you, criticize you with subtle digs disguised as jokes. They play the victim, blame you for everything, gaslight you to the point of you questioning your own reality. There was maybe a couple years ago, I didn't even really know what gaslighting meant until I did some research on it, and I ended up making a video titled "Don't Gaslight Me, I Know My Reality." You might want to check that out if you're not quite sure what gaslighting is. But anyway, maybe there's someone in your life that you absolutely dread being around, and then you feel guilty for avoiding them because maybe it's someone close to you, a spouse, a friend, a family member. If you feel like you are walking on a tightrope in order to keep the peace with someone, you are most likely in a spiritual battle. And it's a battle that most Christians don't even recognize, and they have no idea how to deal with it. And there is a word for this, a very overused word, but there really is no other word to describe the kind of behavior that I'm talking about, and that is narcissism. I made a video titled "A Sign of the Times, Why Are People So Mean?" And in that video, I presented a biblical perspective of narcissism in reference to a book with that same title. You might want to check that out if this sounds familiar. Now, the Bible does not use the word narcissist, but it does very clearly describe narcissistic behavior. And that can be found in 2 Timothy verses 3, 1-5. You need to be aware that in the final days, the culture of society will become extremely fierce. People will be self-centered, lovers of themselves, and obsessed with money. They will boast of great things as they strut around in their arrogant pride and mock all that is right. They will ignore their own families. They will be ungrateful and unholy. They will become addicted to hateful and malicious slander, slaves to their desires. They will be ferocious, belligerent haters of what is good and right. With brutal treachery, they will act without restraint, bigoted, and wrapped in clouds of their conceit. They will find their delight in the pleasures of this world more than the pleasures of loving God. They may pretend to have a respect for God, but in reality they want nothing to do with God's power. Stay away from people like this. So the Bible is clearly instructing us to stay away from those types of people. And that comes from the Passion Translation of the New Testament. So it might sound a little different than the translation you might be used to. In today's culture, narcissism is presented as a psychological problem, but it's actually a spiritual issue that even Jesus himself dealt with. So it's a very old problem. The Bible tells us to be as shrewd as serpents, but as harmless as doves. And one of the ways we can do that is to learn to recognize repeated bad behavior coming from someone who shows no remorse and refuses to change, and then learn how to deal with people like that. Someone with an unrepentant heart will open the door to a demonic influence, and because our battle is not against flesh and blood, it's not against people, but it's against the evil spirits that hold them in bondage, we have to learn how to recognize someone who is under this type of demonic influence. And the Bible warns about this in Ephesians 6, 12-13. We are told that our hand-to-hand combat is not with human beings. It's with the highest principalities and authorities operating in rebellion under the heavenly realms. For they are a powerful class of demon gods and evil spirits that hold this dark world in bondage. And because of this, you must wear all the armor that God provides so that you are protected as you confront slanderers you are destined for all things and will rise victorious. So you will confront this type of person, and God is telling us that we can be victorious. Some other things you might notice from people like this is their constant manipulation, their need to control. They can't celebrate any success that you have. If something great happens in your life, they're not going to be happy, and they won't congratulate you. They repeatedly lie with no sense of guilt. They seek to destroy your character and your reputation. They're prideful and boastful. They might brag about their accomplishments, see themselves as above you because maybe they're more educated. Pretty much, they're up here, and when they look around at everybody else, they're down here. And maybe not all of these things I mentioned, a few of them, sometimes all of them. So what is going on in the mind of a narcissist? First of all, narcissists are attracted to people who do not challenge them. So they target people who are kind and empathetic. So if you are someone who is wired for compassion, the narcissist will exploit your kindness. They feed on your insecurities. They actually see your kindness as weakness. You can think of a narcissist as someone who wears a mask. They're trying to hide who they really are because they can't handle self-reflection. So they project their shame onto other people, and then when they get a reaction from you, they feed off of that energy. So if you stay in their presence, they will drain you spiritually and could eventually make you feel like you're pretty much destroyed. So maybe at this point you're saying to yourself, yeah, Danelle, I've come across a lot of people like that my whole life. If that's you, there is a chance that you might be someone who exposes people like this. That could be part of your assignment on this earth. I'm going to read a quote from a YouTube video titled, "If Jesus handled narcissists like this, so should you." And that comes from the channel Light and Faith. And the quote is, "If you're someone who goes into dark places and reveals truth, chaos will follow you just like it followed Jesus. Love doesn't enable lies, love tells the truth." Jesus confronted people to reveal truth. So I'm going to get into the way that we should handle narcissists because it's the way that Jesus handled them. And I'm going to start with what I just said. He called out toxic behavior by speaking the truth. Now, it is a common Christian misconception that we are supposed to tolerate abuse from people, turn the other cheek, forgive 70 times 7, don't judge people's behavior. But Jesus was not a doormat. In the book of Matthew, Jesus boldly called out the Pharisees. They were the religious scholars of that time. He called them frauds, pretenders. He called them blind guides, nitpickers, greedy, self-indulgent, hypocrites. And he did it with a righteous anger. And that is an anger that rises up to protect, not to harm. And sometimes the person you need to protect is you. Another misconception Christians have is that all anger is bad. We're never supposed to get angry. But there is a righteous anger, and then there's an anger that leads to sinful behavior. There's actually a good and bad kind of anger. So if we stay on the good side of that anger, anger is not a bad thing. And Chris Reese, she made a good point in her video titled, "How Did Jesus Handle Narcissists?" She said, just remember that calling something out doesn't mean it will change. When you call something out, it doesn't mean it will change. Because it often didn't change for Jesus. And it likely won't change for you. So don't expect your truth to change them. You will be setting yourself up for disappointment if you come in speaking truth and expecting that your truth is going to change anybody, is basically what she's saying. The second way Jesus handled narcissists was to ignore them. Another quote from Chris Reese: narcissists have a way of creating drama everywhere they go. The Pharisees were a classic example. Jesus chose to ignore them and focus on his mission. So there are times when ignoring someone is the right thing to do. It's the appropriate response, and you shouldn't feel bad about it. The third way we handle these types of people: set boundaries. The Bible tells us to guard our hearts, for it determines the course of our lives. And sometimes guarding your heart means stepping away in order to protect your peace. Jesus didn't always trust people. When someone has a history of hurting you, you should never feel guilty about pulling back, stepping away. Their actions have shown you again and again that they can't be trusted, so it would be foolish of you to think you can trust them. Quote from the video I mentioned earlier from the channel Light and Faith: Jesus loved people without handing them his peace, his energy, and his sense of self. So we can cut people off and walk away from abusers because Jesus did it and the Bible tells us to. Matthew 10:14, if anyone will not welcome you, leave the house and the town and shake the dust off your feet. And in 1 Corinthians 5:11, we are told to exclude from our fellowship anyone who claims to be a Christian but does not act like one. So what exactly does it say about that? I'm writing to you so that you would exclude from your fellowship anyone who calls himself a fellow believer and practices sexual immorality, or is consumed with greed, or is an idolater, or is verbally abusive, or a drunkard, or a swindler. Don't mingle with them, or even have a meal with someone like that. What right do I have to pronounce judgment on unbelievers? That's God's responsibility. But those who are inside the church family are our responsibility to discern and judge. So it is your duty to remove that wicked one from among you. So that's something that was new to me. I just realized that. I read that and it really hit me. It made me realize that as Christians, we have a duty to call out other people who claim to be Christians but are going down a wayward path. Earlier in that passage, he says if we avoided unbelievers, we would have to isolate ourselves from the world entirely, and that it's God's job to judge unbelievers, but it's our job as Christians to discern and judge people inside the church family. And this is something that many Christians don't get. They just don't want to do that. They don't feel they should. They don't feel it's their responsibility. And yet here it is in the Bible telling us that it is our responsibility to get involved when we see other Christians displaying ungodly behavior, is basically what it's saying here. I want to mention here a very good point made in a video titled The Hidden Spiritual Battle Behind Narcissists, and that's on the YouTube channel Biblical Life Hacks. And this is in reference to your decision to walk away from a toxic person. You are not abandoning a person, you are refusing to partner with darkness. You can't fix them. Some people won't change because they can't change until God breaks the demonic stronghold that is on them. So when we step away, we should also be praying against the spiritual forces that are at work, asking God to break that demonic stronghold so that they can be set free. I have two final quotes that I want to end with. First one from the Light and Faith channel that I mentioned. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you stop loving someone. It means you stop allowing their dysfunction to control your life. Loving people well sometimes means I won't let you treat me like this anymore. And then from Chris Reese, and I'm going to spell that, capital K-R-I-S, and then R-E-E-C-E. It's not Chris in the usual way you might think it's spelled with a K. And she said, if you continue to try to love the narcissist and tolerate the behavior, you are simply perpetuating the evil that they are causing. Narcissists rarely show any genuine repentance, so be careful how you are loving and praying for this person. I thought that was a really good warning, because sometimes you will make the mistake of just allowing them to continue in their abusive behavior, thinking that you're loving them, but what you're actually doing is perpetuating and enabling their abuse. So, I hope this has helped you. This is a difficult topic to talk about, but it's something that is very, very prevalent in our society today. We're warned about it, and we are definitely living in those times where narcissistic behavior is on the rise. It's just about everywhere you look. It's in the workplace, it's friendships, families, church. So we need videos like this, and there are lots of videos like this on YouTube. If you type narcissist into YouTube, you'll have videos where you could spend years watching. There are just so many of them, because it is a topic that needs to be discussed today. You know, difficult people, self-centered, egotistical people have been around since the beginning of creation. Jesus himself dealt with it. So we do need to learn about it, what's behind it, and how to deal with it. And in my next video, I'm going to be looking at the healing process after you have experienced narcissistic abuse. There's a healing process that you have to go through, and I'm going to be sharing some things that I learned, what to do, what not to do during that healing process, in order to heal and have peace after you've encountered someone like that. So you can finally step out of that whirlwind and feel whole and at peace. It's an important thing to share the healing process as well. So I hope you'll join me for that. And thanks for listening, and thanks for staying till the end. And I appreciate all of you, and I will see you next time.